You are now entering Clearview, Illinois. The name of tonight's tale is The Ditch Digger. Rain ticked softly against the diner window, the kind that came down steady and cold, turning the highway outside into a black ribbon of reflected light. The neon sign above the door flickered every few seconds, buzzing like an angry insect. The O in hello had burned out long ago, so from the road the place read, Hell Diner, whenever the letter sputtered. Inside, the diner was nearly empty. A lone traveler sat at the counter, water dripping from the shoulders of their jacket onto the cracked vinyl stool. The coffee in front of them steamed quietly, untouched. Beyond the windows, the road stretched into nothing but darkness and wet cornfields. Behind the counter, the cook leaned on his elbows. He looked like a man who had lived in the heat of that grill too long. His white tank top was stained with grease, his arms marked with faded tattoos. His hair hung damp and greasy, pushed back with one hand now and then, and a rough, uneven beard covered his jaw like he hadn't bothered shaving in a week. He watched the traveler the way a mechanic might watch a strange noise in an engine. Quiet, curious. The traveler finally broke the silence. Hey, is this the road headed into Clearview? The cook wiped his hands on a rag and shrugged. Depends. Depends on what? The cook pressed on some meat that was grilling. Gray billows of smoke filled the air. Still holding that greasy spatula, he looked at the traveler. Depends on where you plan on staying. The traveler let out a small laugh, the nervous kind that came out when something didn't quite land as a joke. I'm just passing through. The cook nodded slowly. Behind them, a waitress drifted between the empty tables, wiping down a booth that already looked clean. She never looked at the traveler directly, but every now and then, she paused, listening. The cook leaned forward on the counter. You ever heard of something called the Ditch Digger? The traveler shook his head. No, most people haven't. The cook scratched his beard, eyes drifting briefly towards the rain-slicked road outside. Folks around here started talking about it maybe 20 years back. Drivers, mostly. People who got lost and ended up on the road that runs through Clearview. He spoke slowly, like he told the story 100 times before. They'd be driving late, storms like this one, cornfields on both sides of the road, and not another set of headlights for miles. The traveler shifted slightly on the stool. Then they'd think they'd hit something. A deer? Maybe. The cook shrugged. They'd stop the car, get out, look around. Nothing there, just wet pavement, wind moving through the corn. But then they'd hear it. The traveler frowned. Hear what? The cook's voice lowered just a little. Something walking. He tapped 2 fingers against the counter. Out in the ditch. The rain grew heavier, tapping against the glass. Grass moving. Slow footsteps like someone dragging their boots through mud. Step, step, step. They'd call out, the cook said. Hello? But the ditch stayed dark. They turned their headlights towards the grass, and that's when they'd see him. The traveler leaned forward slightly. See who? The cook met their eyes. The ditch digger. He described it carefully. A tall shape standing half hidden in the weeds. Too thin, too still. Its head tilted like it was studying the car, and its eyes reflecting the headlights like an animal, but wrong. Thing is, the cook said, it never chases you. The traveler blinked. What do you mean? It just walks. The cook gestured vaguely towards the road outside. Along the ditch, same direction you're going. Step, step, step. You get back in the car and drive off, and a mile later, he shrugged. There he is again, Still walking, still keeping pace. Another mile down the road, same thing. The traveler's voice tightened. And if you stop, the cook's mouth curved slightly, though it wasn't really a smile. That's when people disappear. Silence settled over the diner. The waitress appeared suddenly beside the traveler, setting down a plate of eggs and toast they hadn't ordered. The traveler hadn't even noticed her approaching. She returned to the shadows between the booths, watching. The cook looked down at the plate for a moment, then back at the traveler. You said you were heading to Clearview? Yeah. The cook nodded towards the dark highway beyond the rain-streaked glass. Well, you're already on the right road. The traveler let out a breath of relief. Good, because my GPS stopped working 10 miles back. That happens. The cook wiped his counter slowly with his rag. Just one thing. What? If you see someone walking in the ditch tonight, he leaned a little closer. Don't stop. The traveler nodded quickly. Trust me, I won't. The cook studied him for a moment. Then he glanced towards the waitress standing quietly behind the counter. Her eyes were fixed on the traveler now. The cook looked back. Yeah? He said softly. That's what the last one said too. Outside, the neon sign flickered again. For a moment, the diner window reflected only one word, glowing in red. Hell. The plate sat between them on the counter. Eggs, toast, steam rising slowly into the dim light. The traveler hadn't touched it. For a moment, neither of them said anything. The waitress stood there, her head tilted slightly as she looked down at the plate, then at the traveler. Behind the counter, the cook had already turned away. He walked back into the kitchen without a word, pushing through the swinging door with his shoulder. Now his back was turned, but something about the way his shoulders held told the traveler he was still listening. The waitress picked up the coffee pot and tipped it towards the mug. Refill? She asked. Her voice was soft, but when she spoke again, something stretched strangely in the words. Oh, don't worry about him, she said. He's always telling big stories. The S lingered a little too long, sliding off her tongue like a hiss. The traveler glanced towards the kitchen. The cook hadn't moved. The traveler cleared their throat. I didn't order anything. The waitress looked down at the plate again. Then she gave a slow little nod. Oh, she said. You sure didn't. She reached down and slid the plate towards herself to take it away. As her sleeve pulled back slightly, the traveler saw something on her arm. At first, it looked like psoriasis, a dry patch of pale skin, but it wasn't quite right. The surface looked flaky, almost like thin scales lifting away from the skin. When she moved her arm, something tiny drifted loose. A few white flecks of dander fell onto the counter. She didn't seem to notice. The traveler looked at the flecks, then quickly looked away, not saying anything, just nodding. Actually, the traveler said quietly, I'll just have a coffee. Fresh cup? The waitress smiled. That I can do. She carried the plate away and walked towards the coffee machine at the far end of the counter. The traveler looked towards the kitchen again. The cook was no longer facing the grill. He had turned slightly, just enough that the traveler could see part of his face in the small gap of the swinging door. He wasn't looking at the traveler. He was watching her. His eyes were fixed on the waitress, like a man watching a coiled spring. The traveler followed his gaze. The waitress lifted the glass coffee pot and poured a fresh cup. Coffee streamed down into the mug with a hollow sound. The cook didn't move, didn't speak. But the moment she set the mug down, he slowly turned his back again. Inside the kitchen, something began to smoke. Thick gray billows rolled out through the doorway, curling along the ceiling like fog creeping across a lake. The traveler caught the smell a moment later. It wasn't bacon. Not eggs, not toast or sausage. Nothing like diner food at all. It was sweet and tangy, almost like caramel mixed with something metallic, something the traveler couldn't place. The traveler turned slightly on the stool, trying to see into the kitchen. Through the smoke, they could make out the cook standing over the grill, one hand resting on the edge of the counter. He wasn't flipping anything. He was just standing there, listening. The waitress slid the mug across the counter. There you go. The traveler wrapped both hands around the warm cup. Thanks. She leaned slightly against the counter, watching. The traveler took a sip of the coffee. It tasted normal. The waitress tilted her head. You're not from around here, she said. No. Passing through? Yeah. Heading to Clearview? The traveler paused. That's what the cook said. The waitress smiled again, a slow smile this time. Well, she said softly, then you're almost there. Behind her, the kitchen smoke thickened, and for the first time since sitting down, the traveler realized something. The cook hadn't started cooking until after the waitress brought the plate out. But now, the smell coming from the kitchen was getting stronger, sweeter, tangier. And underneath it, something else. Something faint. Something the traveler had smelled once before. At a hospital. Burnt skin. The traveler slowly set the coffee mug down. Across the room, the waitress was still smiling. Behind her, the kitchen door creaked open slightly. The cook stepped halfway through. His eyes met the traveler's. He didn't say anything. He just gave the smallest shake of his head. The traveler's hand stayed wrapped around the warm coffee mug. The waitress lingered for a moment longer behind the counter, that strange smile still resting on her lips, the kitchen smoke rolling down through the doorway behind her. Then the cook's voice came from the kitchen, calm, flat. Ida, pick up. The traveler blinked. Pick up what? The cook disappeared back into the kitchen without another word. A moment later, the traveler heard the scrape of a plate across metal. Ida, so that was her name, walked around the counter slowly. The traveler heard the kitchen door swing open behind them. She returned carrying another plate, spaghetti, red sauce steaming gently under the diner lights. The traveler frowned immediately. I didn't order. The cook stepped halfway out of the kitchen doorway. On the house, he said. His voice sounded oddly tired now. You're probably gonna need your strength. He wiped his hands on the rag again. Just to stay awake. He nodded towards the coffee. Take that mug with you. I'll give you a to-go cup when you're ready. The traveler looked down at the plate. Spaghetti. In a roadside diner like this? Before they could question it, Ida had already begun drifting back towards the kitchen area. As she walked away, the traveler saw something flick behind her, low, just below the hem of her long skirt. A quick movement, thin, curved. The traveler blinked hard. Maybe the light had shifted. Maybe the shadows from the flickering neon had played tricks. For a split second, it looked like a tail. The traveler rubbed their eyes. I've been reading too many damn conspiracy books. Lizard people, underground governments, all that nonsense. I gotta stop that, he thought. Ida disappeared through a small door near the kitchen. Break time, she said casually. Inside the small employee closet, she pulled out a plastic Tupperware container. She dipped her head inside the room, shielding whatever she was doing from view. The traveler barely paid attention. Their eyes had returned to the spaghetti. The smell rising from the plate was incredible. But after seeing the flakes of dander still resting on the counter earlier, the traveler wasn't hungry anymore. Not even a little. They pushed the plate slightly away. I think I'm just gonna pay my tab and head out. The cook appeared behind the counter again. He didn't look angry, just serious. Eat, he said quietly. The traveler frowned. What? Eat before you get sick. The traveler blinked. That had come completely out of nowhere. What does that even mean? The cook said nothing, just looked at the plate, then at the traveler, the silent stretch. Finally, the traveler sighed. Fine. They twirled a small forkful of spaghetti and took a cautious bite and froze. It was incredible. Rich, savory, perfect. The best spaghetti they had ever tasted. For a moment, they forgot everything else. Forgot the waitress, forgot the smoke, forgot the strange smell in the kitchen. They took another bite and another. Across the counter, the cook never stopped watching. His eyes were fixed on the traveler the entire time. The traveler felt a strange heaviness settling behind their eyes. The cook leaned forward slightly. His lips moved. He whispered something. The traveler couldn't hear the words. The sound seemed blurred, like it had passed through water. The traveler tried to focus. What did you? The room tilted. The coffee mug slid slightly in their hands. The lights above the counter stretched into long, glowing lines. I'm just tired, the traveler thought. I haven't slept in almost 20 hours. Or had they been drugged? The thought barely finished forming. Their head dropped forward. Thud. Face down into the spaghetti. Out cold. The cook exhaled quietly. Yep, he muttered. He's sleeping. From the hallway, Ida emerged again. She walked calmly to the front door. The neon sign outside buzzed as she flipped the lock. Then she pulled the heavy shades down over the windows. The diner darkened instantly. She stepped back into the kitchen area. Well, she said softly, there's another one we saved tonight. The cook nodded. Then, bang, bang, bang! A violent pounding shook the diner door. Both of them froze. Outside, someone was screaming. A man's voice, raw, desperate. Please! Another bang against the door. The screaming turned into something worse, something full of terror. Help me! The cook's jaw tightened. God damn it! He muttered. He reached under the counter and pulled a double-barreled shotgun. The metal gleamed under the dim lights. Ida stepped back slowly, staying behind him. The pounding on the door stopped. Outside, something moved through the rain. Tall, thin, walking slowly along the ditch beside the road. The cook didn't open the door. Didn't move. He just held the shotgun steady, watching the darkness. The ditch digger, Ida whispered. The man outside screamed again, but the sound didn't last long. It turned into something wet, something choking. Then, silence, complete silence. The cook kept the shotgun raised a few seconds longer, then slowly lowered it. The rain kept falling outside. Ida looked towards the unconscious traveler slumped over the counter. Good thing he didn't see it, she said. The cook nodded once. Yeah, if he had. He glanced towards the dark road outside. That would be the end of Clearview. He wiped his hand slowly on the rag again. Next thing you know, it's tourist attractions, ghost hunters, influencer idiots with cameras. He shook his head. Why people want to put themselves in danger? He muttered. I'll never understand. Outside the ditch, grass rustled softly in the wind. Step, step, step. The ditch digger kept walking down the road. You are now leaving Clearview, Illinois city limits. Hope you enjoyed the trip.